is Larissa Subira. I am the content manager from the Black African Woman, and you're here for an episode, a very special episode of After I Do the Story of Steffi and Jessy. If by some miracle you have not heard of the show, firstly, why haven't you? But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you're here for this very special session. And firstly, if you haven't watched all the episodes, I highly encourage you to pause this and go and watch the rest of the first episodes. And if you don't know what this show is about, it's really tracking the life of a young African married couple. They've been married for 4 years. Their names are Steffi and Jessy, and they've just been sharing all the different aspects of marriage, from like the road to marriage, from dealing with expectations from your family, from gender roles. That was a hot one. From dealing with finances, from even dealing with mental health. So it's really been such a really great season. And today we have Steffi's friends with us, and we're going to be jumping into a really juicy topic, I think, expectations, and from the perspective of women. We're doing a ladies panel and a gents panel. So I have the high and esteemed honor of having Steffi and her friends. Ladies, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, ladies. So good to have you with us. I'm going to quickly introduce these ladies. So, as I mentioned, we have Steffi, who is, should I call you the star of the show? She's the main star. But she is one half of this really amazing and lovely couple who really allowed us as a Black African woman to really just dig into more of their relationship. And she's invited her lovely friends. I'm gonna introduce them in order of who I see. To my left is Khanyisile. Khanyisile is based out of Johannesburg, and she's repping us single sisters out here. And then we have Gina, who's next to Steffi on my screen. Gina is based in Vancouver. Am I wrong, or Montreal? Vancouver, you're based in Vancouver, and she is married. She's a Burundian who's married, and we just found out a really cool fact. Should I share it, guys? Yes, sure. No?
You can.
So I just found out, people, that so they've been friends for a very, very long time, and that both their parents were married on the same day, the same year in Burundi. Like, how crazy is that? And they've been friends all these years. And then we have Arame Seye. She is married. She's also married and based in Montreal, Canada. And she's married to someone he's also, are you Senegalese, I believe?
Yeah.
Senegalese,
and he is also.
All right, thank you so much, ladies. As I said earlier, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really keen to get into this conversation. Firstly, if you guys don't already know, I should have done this in the beginning. How awful of me. You need to firstly follow Steffi and Jessy on Instagram. Then you need to go and follow the Black African Woman on Facebook. We have a YouTube page where you're following this. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. And we're also on Instagram. So guys, we're all over social media. You really have no excuse. We really want to hear from you. We really want to hear whether or not you're enjoying these conversations. This is all for you. All right. So ladies, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So as I introduced it, so really we want to talk about the expectations that women have in relationships, about relationships, right? So we're just going to be tracking it from like before you got into a long-term relationship and a marriage, and like living through it and all the different dynamics. And we're going to speak about it from a single woman's perspective and a married woman's perspective. But I thought a really cool question to start with was, what do you guys think is the biggest lie that we women tell each other? And guys, what I've done is I have written out their names on these post-its, because I don't want to like play no favoritism. So I'm going to just pick them out randomly, and whoever I pick will answer the question first. As you can see, all the ladies are feeling slightly nervous. Guys, relax, it's fine. This is a safe space. All right, I picked a name. Gina, you're first.
Oh, come on.
So Gina, the question is, so you heard the question. The question is, what do you think, just one, okay? What do you think the biggest lie the women tell each other about relationships or marriage?
I think it's more about the power they have and what they can say not acceptable and acceptable, like in a relationship. Like I always feel like as friends, does anybody, we always, until it happens to us, we always say, yo, he will never be able to do this. This is not accepted. Like, I will stop you, I will do this. Then we turn around and behind closed doors, we soften up and taking it on, I guess.
That's a good one. Yeah, we're all with our girls, hey, this is a deal breaker, I'd never deal with this, and then real life happens. Wow.
We all G's, all tough until none of our
until your heart is involved. All right, I'm going to go in order of what I see in front of me. So you next.
Oh, gosh. For me, I think you kind of touched on it in a way, Gina, when I'm thinking, because Larry, women tell each other about relationships. I don't know. I think the fact that they're like easy in a way. Maybe it's just me and how I grew up in my friends, but it's like easy in terms of it's always happy. Like it's, you see the Valentine's gifts, you see the picnics, you see the weekends away, and it's always like, for me, it's all lovey-dovey happy. And then reality is, listen, the tears you don't see, the screaming you don't see, the I want to pull my hair out you don't see, So I think, yeah, in a way, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it's that it's always just roses and sunshines and butterflies.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I totally get you. And then Steffi?
So I guess I'm building on what both Gina and Kanye said. I think sometimes we're not honest on like how much work happens behind closed doors, right? I've heard so many times women say, no, you need to build your man, you need to elevate him, you need to make sure he feels empowered, blah, blah, blah. But they don't discuss how much work it requires from you in order to do that, because sometimes it's painful. The process of you being able to elevate him means you putting down some of your feelings. So I don't think women are always honest on that.
Yeah, the compromises and the sacrifices sometimes you have to make, right?
Yeah.
And then Arame?
I think everything was said is just so perfect. And if I can just add one thing, it's how you have to almost compromise in a lot of subjects. It's not always you will agree on all the topics. It's like I feel 100% of compromises, and it's not something we necessarily say out loud. It's as if we always take those decisions together. We both agree, but reality is not always so.
It's interesting. So basically the theme of the discussion is when we're all together, we're like, oh, gango, oh, gee, like, oh, it's all romantic, romance and butterfly and roses. And then I'll always stand up for myself and I'm not going to compromise. And then, well, the actual reality of the relationship, right? So ladies, thank you so much for that. So then just to go back to the beginning. So, to those of you who are married, right? What did you think marriage would be like? Like one or two things. I mean, like in terms of the lives we've just described, did you think it was going to be that, or I mean, what else did you think? And I think Steffi, it's only fair that I start with you this time.
I definitely did not expect that marriage included this much conflict, because growing up in a Burundian family, our Burundian parents never showed when they were fighting, or when they did not agree on something. I think they sorted it out, very quietly, and it was something that was never discussed with us, or that we never felt or we never saw, So then going into my marriage, I didn't know it was gonna include this much, fighting, disagreeing, It feels like a boxing ring most of the time. So that's the reality, and I don't think I was prepared for that. I didn't see marriage as such.
And then Arame, how many years have you been married?
We've been married for 10 years this year.
Oh wow!
In April.
Oh wow! Well, congratulations, the big thing.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. So 10 years married. I mean, you're probably longer in the marriage than you were in sort of the single relationship aspect of your life. But what were the thoughts that you had coming into your marriage? Like, the months leading up to the time you're married, and then all that. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be being married versus being boyfriend and girlfriend. I had that assumption that it was going to be the same thing, same perspective, same dynamics in the house. Like, we had never lived together. So it was the first time for me even just leaving my house and going to live with somebody else. And, but we've been seeing each other for like short periods of time. So for weekends, it was just always perfect. And I had that assumption that marriage would be the same thing. And I mean, it was the same thing the first few months because you're still in sort of that honeymoon phase. But then after a few months, 3 years, the dynamic changed. And I was not, like Steffi just said, was not ready that there was going to be that much challenges, that much compromise, that much fight, just because we're two different personality. I have a very strong personality also. And so compromising for me was hard than it was for my husband, I believe.
That's interesting. I mean, like, that's really great to hear, because I think we always have like this very one-sided view that the woman is always the one doing the majority of the compromising and giving in, and it's interesting to hear that in your experience, like, it was a bit of the opposite, and then for you, Gina, how many years have you been married?
5 if I count. Yeah, still a wedding. So I did my things really completely different than. So we lived together quite a while before. Never followed the norm, but got married 5 years ago, but religiously married for 2 years. So what I thought was different, it's a little bit different from Steffi and Naham, is just that I went outside of our culture, right? So I married a Burundian guy, married a guy from Benin. And I don't think you ever get prepared on how much marriage is us against the world. It's always, like, we talk about a lot about the fighting inside, but really what we keep saying until today is we actually had to create our own traditions, our own culture, like, which is like a mix of both. It's a fusion. Like, what's really important for me, because first early days of not even being married, living together, when I first, like in 2013, most of the fights were around, oh, I need to do this because that's how I've been doing it for years. Not, you're a bad person, I'm a bad person. This is what I'm used to. So I feel like everybody prepared me on how to be a good wife, a good woman, but nobody prepared me how to defend my values or how to let go of my values. So I always feel like that's the only thing that really surprised me and we still haven't figured it all out, but I feel like we're on the path of understanding what matters, basically, in everything that we have. It's like a basket of cultures, and we pick and choose what really matters for us.
That's super interesting. I mean, Gina, we may be calling you for next season. I'm just saying. I'm just warning you.
You don't want. I promise you. You don't.
I do, because you have said so much that I'm like, ooh, like the sociologist in me is like, let's unpack more, But one question I wanted to actually I should have asked this before. So, ladies, like, I mean, did you want to get married?
Yes. I've always been a cheesy girl, guys. So my favorite movie is The Notebook. I'm like, I believe in fairy tales and all of that. I can see Gina is rolling her eyes, right? Because she knows I'm not lying. I'm a girl, a typical girl. So I wanted everything about, the fairy tale, the big wedding, everything.
And then for you, Aram and Gina, did you both want to get married?
Yeah, I think culturally and religiously also, it was just something that it had to happen. Once you graduate university, you have a good job. Next step is wedding and marriage.
I didn't even think we had a choice. I don't think he ever occupied a part of my mind. Like, is that a yes or no? I always thought it was. it was something we had to do. Until I met my husband and questioned it. My husband was like, "Why you have to?" So when we were living together, and I'm like, actually, yeah, so it's a good point. Why do you have to? So it took a lot of rethinking.
That's really interesting. But like, so I mean, you guys have already sort of shared it, like just the eye opener, and you can definitely come in here. I mean, not to seem. I mean, have you had a long-term relationship before?
I have.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask is, because I think long-term relationships and partnerships, marriages, I think there are definitely a couple of shared themes we can definitely talk about. And for you guys, like, what's been like the biggest eye-opener for you? I mean, we've already mentioned you didn't realize how much compromising would happen. You didn't realize like how much of a give and take it would be. You didn't realize this thing of living with another human being needs an adjustment, But like above and beyond that, like what's been like the biggest, and it can be a good eye opener, it doesn't all have to be, we want people to like feel excited about love and all of these things, But what's been an eye opener for you? And anybody can go. Who wants to speak first?
I'm still thinking about the answer.
Yeah, pick someone, Lisa.
Yeah, Steffi.
Last time, Gina was okay. I think I think you haven't gone first yet.
Oh man, well,
pardon, you're still thinking.
I'm still thinking. I think I don't know, like biggest eye opener, and you said it. Marriage is not about just like those negative, challenging moments, but it's also lots of things that you can create. And one thing that's for sure, we're trying to like set a sort of a like tradition. I feel like with my parents, we have like family tradition that we're doing what we do for Christmas, what we do for New Year's and stuff like that. And being together, he was doing things differently. Although we have the same background, he grew up in Senegal and lived abroad most of his life, but we're doing things differently. And one of the good things like being together is being able to like have that fusion and like do something that will work for our family and like build stuff for my daughter, what she wants. And like one of the things that, we want to do is traveling, like travel to the most number of countries we can for her. And I think marriage allows you to do that because I had the chance that he has the same point of view when it comes to traveling, discovering new cultures, new countries. And so we just share the same passion. And I think my daughter is now having the same passion or problem that she needs to travel as much as she can.
Yeah, and I can imagine how hard it must be for you guys with COVID and having to stay indoors, not being able to leave. And I do know one thing about especially kids who've grown up outside home, like we always like at least once a year you've got to like get on a plane at least once a year.
Absolutely. It's challenging, that's for sure.
It really is. Now I'm going to do a bit of an L letter, so Steffi, you're next.
Okay. I was still thinking about mine. Oh my God, it's many things. One thing that I experienced after getting married that I wasn't expecting, and it was a pleasant surprise. So I had always seen myself as a very independent person, and maybe it comes from also the kind of setting that I grew up in. I have a mom she's extremely independent, she's always had her own life, her own things, everything. And then I get into this relationship and it's about like doing everything together, but it's fun, you know what I mean? So I used to see women that do everything or that are always stuck to their husband or their boyfriend like as something negative, but there's actually I don't know. I think for me, I'm discovering another side of myself that I didn't know, and I'm enjoying it because it's actually fun, So that's what I could think of that is positive that I didn't necessarily see as a positive thing growing up, yeah.
That's tough. So you're discovering new facets of yourself through your relationship, which is which is really cool. Gina?
It's more of towards what Steffi is saying, right? It's more of a rediscovering. So me, the day we said I do, we really knew what we were saying I do to. Because we lived together for 3 years. We had gone through the rough first year, second year, and no matter whatever struggle, no matter whatever challenge we had gone through, it was always fun. Like the days where we had fun were greater than the days that we struggled. So I discovered another side, and I discovered like another personality that I could use, like another me that could have fun, like could voice like how I feel, which is not always the case. Like we grew up in a house full of boys and all that, and your feeling is useless. Like at the moment, I don't care. Like, in a case like
I can relate. I have brothers.
So and having this person listening and really caring, and you kind of get surprised. So that was the eye opener, and realized there's another side of you that you didn't know that could get soft, as we said earlier, right? So yeah.
And then Kanye, for you?
Oh my gosh, I'm listening to Gina, I'm melting. I'm just like, oh, and so Steffi's comments. I'm like, because I fully understand. I'm with them, especially that independence part, right? When you all strong black female, and Lord knows those who grew up with me, I promise you, if 90% of the people who I grew up with in high school especially saw this video, would die. They would literally be like, guess who's become soft? And you know what I mean? So I honestly fully agree with what they've said. I think the other big eye-opener for me, and a huge positive, is I mean, there's been movies done about this. There's been books written. The whole thing of the whole in-law story, like your in-laws. Oh my God. My word, it does not have to be a bad relationship and a bad vibe. There are in-laws that are amazing. And I think for me, that has touched me, warmed my heart, where you, like, the times where you're actually feeling like you're stepping into a family. Like you are literally growing in as a sister, as a cousin, as a family member. And for me, that's been a huge eye-opener, huge positive, and very, very, it gets me quite excited about the whole institution of marriage, if I can put it like that. Yeah.
But now let's move into you as women and as individuals. There are all of these teachings we get before as you're becoming a woman. In most cultures. I know with the Zulu culture, there are all of these ceremonies you guys do as your woman is becoming of age and everything. So. And there's all of these, like, I think, what do they call them? Old wives' tales about when you become a married woman, you shouldn't have any single girlfriends. Your friendships must change. Your relationships must change. Like it's a real thing. And it's like married women, like you get into the secret society and like, But I feel like let's talk about that, because I think what I don't think that our mother's generation always had was the benefit of having a sisterhood. And I think us as millennial women, that's like our life source, and let's talk about that. I know, like, at least, anecdotally from a single girl's perspective, I haven't necessarily had that experience with my married friends. Like, our relationships have continued. We still have that bond. But obviously, as everyone is going through different life stages, it's you adjust, you flow, you change to whatever. Like when someone becomes a mom, they obviously come meet you for coffee every Sunday. So maybe you take the coffee to her on that Sunday, So, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about those old wives' tales and then what your realities have been. Who should I start with? It's so hard to pick who to go with first. I think Steffi, you go. So I was with your girlfriends.
Yes, I was gonna say, luckily for me, I didn't have any of, when they're preparing you to get married, I didn't have anyone that says, don't hang out with single friends. Luckily for me, because I don't think it would have worked. I'm still friends with every single person I was friends with before I met Jessy, and then before we got married. I think most of the advice, crazy enough, and it happened like really few days before the marriage. It was more about how sex should be into the marriage, and it shocked me because you go all these years, they never tell you anything about sex,
Yes.
and then they drop a bomb like the day before you get married, 2 days before you get married, you have all these aunties, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to have this conversation with you. So we didn't, luckily for me, outside of that, I didn't, but there's something I wanted to say around, when you're speaking about that sisterhood, and I think for me, the way I see the friendships that I have, I'm very clear on who brings what into my life, and I'm very intentional when I need something or an advice, depending on, I'm not going to go see the same girlfriend for, let's say, a career, advice versus a marriage one versus something else, So I think it's important, to know what role and what place each of your relationship plays in your life, especially when you get married, you need to know how to draw on that. But I want to maybe quickly touch on a piece of advice that I got from a close friend that I'm still very conflicted about. So on my wedding, she told me that for her, she would advise me that every single time I go through a challenge in my marriage, I would, always, take it to God first, but avoid to speak to my friends about challenges that I have in my relationship, because as human beings, we're very quick to reach out to our friends and say, oh, you know what, my husband did this. But then when he does nice things, you're not necessarily going to remember to go back to them to share the positive things. So then they build this image, of your husband. So she was telling me to be very careful about, and honestly, I think I followed her advice in the sense that very early in my marriage, when something wasn't going right, I felt more comfortable going to Jessy's older sister, because I felt that she loved him enough that she wouldn't, even when I was speaking about something negative he's done, she wouldn't, she would balance it out with, because she knew him outside of him being a married man. But at the same time, it got to a point where it felt heavy and I needed my girls, like I needed my girlfriend. So I still haven't really, found the balance to say, I understand what she meant, but sometimes you really need your people. Not to say that his sister is not my person, she is, and she's amazing. But sometimes you just need to go to your girlfriend. So I'm still battling to find the right balance with that.
And ideally, if they're really your good friends, they'll also be able to tell you when you're going offside, I think.
100%.
So I think that I think just being what you're saying. What the important thing that you've done, I think, is that you've been very clear about your friendships and you've been intentional about them. And hopefully you should have people in your life who are, at least your village, they should be the people who are the most honest with you. So even if you're wrong, they should be able to say, like, listen, sis, I love you, but on this one.
Yeah.
Gina, do you have anything you wanted to add on to that?
Well, one thing maybe I can just say, in my case, it was a different experience of the whole sisterhood, because I got married the youngest probably of my girlfriends, like the first one to get married and then have a baby a few years after. So it was a bit hard to be able to share everything I was going through necessarily, just because they were in different situations and some moves and etc. So that part was a bit challenging initially, and but then after a few years, you just realize that it's not because the person is not married that she can't relate to you. And so I guess, you have like that assumption that, oh, well, you cannot know, but it's not true. I had that false assumption. And then the moment I realized that, I was able to open up and, talk to my friends, whenever there was issues and so on. And one thing that I think was the day before or on the day of my religious marriage, my godmother. So I didn't have that whole discussion with my aunts about what to do and, how to please your man and the whole works. Maybe because we got married in Canada and so most of them could not make it. So, I had the chance to avoid that discussion with them. But the discussion I had with my godmother was, don't forget, like she was just reminding me how it will be challenging. It's not always, lovey-dovey and, let's be friends and all that. And she said, don't forget one thing, you are the one who brought him into the family and you picked him, right? And so we accepted him because you bring him into the family. And she was basically saying that the moment there's one problem or one issue, don't come back and run and say he's a horrible person, because you will influence us thinking he's a horrible person when it's not true. You will have issues, you will like fight on different things, but don't go and call your aunts or your parents, say he did this, he did that, just because you will influence their perception on them. And so sort it out together. And as much as possible, don't involve the parents, because you don't want your parents to change the opinion they have of your husband, and vice versa. You don't want him to do that and have your in-laws have a bad perception of you because of some ridiculous fight of you didn't put the dishwasher away or whatever.
Oh, I have a question. Yes, Kanye?
Also have a question. You also go you go first.
I guess my concern is because there's wisdom definitely in that advice that you were given, but I low-key worry because sometimes, like when one or two friends have finally come to me like about a certain thing, the issue is so deep. It's and not that you necessarily want to go in and swoop in and save the day or whatever. It's just that the issue has really progressed beyond the point where, one or two words of advice can help, and sometimes when people are so, and you should want to protect your marriage, your relationship and everything, but sometimes I wonder at what cost, because yes, it should be sacred, but everybody needs counsel, advice, support, help, all of these things, so all right, we'll
hi.
Hey.
Hello, hi, how you doing?
Hi, good. We'll pause and then we'll start again. No stress.
Yeah, we'll cut that part.
Hold your thoughts.
This is what happens when my office is also the place where he has his stuff.
It's all good. Yeah. Are you happy? Do you want to just close your door properly? Because so just close it fully. Yeah. All right. Also,
bloopers. Sorry.
It's all good. That's why we're pre-recording, because hey,
Live.
All right. Yeah. So my question, let me actually make it clearer. Like, definitely there's wisdom in that advice, but I wonder if, maybe not going to your parents, not going to your siblings, then where else can you seek counsel? Like, is there room and space to have other people who can at times help you? Because I've been reading and watching just a lot of information, and the advice seems to be that, let's say, counseling needs to be consistent throughout your marriage, because you will face many different things. So if you can't go to your parents with certain things, how do you cope when let's say trying to figure it out together has not eventuated with a solution? When you're stuck, where do you go?
Yeah. You literally took my question exactly. It was a copy and paste. It really was a copy and paste, because I think it's the same question, just to build onto that, right? And just to kind of nudge it a little bit also, is in terms of now, also sometimes, yes, and you've said everything, right? But then there's some issues maybe that you are sitting on, and you might have your village and you might have your friends, but because maybe, let's say, for example, they've only been married 4 years, 10 years, or even 10. But I think in a relationship, well, whether dating or married, there comes a level where you actually need maybe that 30-year experience of marriage. So then where do you go to get that? And be it being in marriage or in a relationship, because as a single person, I now not actually fully, not exposed, but fully share all the experiences I've had while dating. We get married, there's certain issues that start building up and piling up. Exactly to your point. But because I've kept it hidden and I'm protecting the image of my now husband, and the sacredness of our marriage, when things start blowing up, if it's really that, like, where do you draw the line? Basically, that's my question. Is where do you draw the line? And you're sitting with an issue, blows up in your face. Everybody's like, but girl.
Yeah. So I think Kanye and Steffi, you mentioned something about in-laws, right? Or saying that in-laws, sometimes we always think of them as they're the bad ones. To me, a formula that worked the best, when I really can understand and there's something I'm struggling with, I really actually go back to his own people that know him the best to show me the other side. I don't know if it's the right way. I wouldn't say it's the right, but if I go tell my mom, she might not have an answer because she doesn't know this guy the way his mama know him, right? So I sometimes really struggle in seeing something. And when I talk to my girls or I talk to my family, they're all saying, yeah, he was wrong in all kinds of way, and everybody's behind me, but he still can't see it. I gotta give the benefit of that something is disconnected here. I gotta go to the source and understand. So multiple times we actually have taken it to his mom together to get the other point of view. The other, we're not bringing you as a problem, but we hear from your wisdom, as you said, Kanye, 30 years of marriage, and you're the mother. I think he's wrong, but you also have the experience. Tell me what I'm missing here, right? I've never left that session feeling I've been attacked. It's actually the other way around. I feel oh, okay, I missed this. I didn't see it this way. And he will understand the same way. He's like, I didn't see it your way. It's not something you should always call. Yeah, he did this and, we need to talk. But when it reaches that boiling point, going to his brother, going to his mom, the people really close that care about him, helps sometimes.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, or Steffi?
I think she was saying it's just so true. I guess from my perspective, maybe because my aunt was so adamant about never first go to your in-laws to complain about your husband, or don't call his mom, or he's that about complaining. And I guess probably kept a lot to myself, saying, okay, I don't want to, go and say certain things. I'll try to figure out myself. And I failed to that. It's not the right way to always keep everything, because you just have your own point of view. And sometimes we are wrong in our point of view, or how we analyze the situation. And it's good to have somebody else gives a perspective. And for me, it took me a while before reaching out to his brother, one of his brother that I was very close to, because I was just complaining about a lot of things. And as Gina's saying, it's just me missing stuff. Although I've been with him for 12 years now, I cannot, I had missed a lot of things that I did not realize how certain things were so important for him. And I was doing everything to push him on the edge. And I needed to be mature enough to reach out to his brother for some advice. And that's how I understood that it's not just go and complain. It's just more about understanding who you're dealing with. And so you adjust yourself at the same way. But it took me a while to realize that, but.
Steffi, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to agree with Gina on that, because I feel like it has helped me a lot, to her point, to try when I was trying to understand why my husband behaves a certain way, or when we were having, challenges or conflicting, point of view. I found that it helped me that my first point and the first person that I always went back to is his best friend, who happens to be his older sister. She's been with him his whole life. But I think where I wanted to say most of the time where I felt that I needed my girlfriends was now the emotional impact of what we're going through on myself, not necessarily what he's doing or where we're having the challenge, but how has that issue impacted me. I needed a place to, sometimes you just want to call someone and just, you want to vent and cry and just say something is heavy on me. And that I found that I waited too long to go to my girlfriends, because my first point was constantly going to, my husband's sister. But I do agree 110% with what Gina said. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, and we could talk for on and on. I'm just trying to figure out what question to ask this, because as you're speaking, we're oh, that issue. But I think, just the last couple of last conversation piece that we could sort of have, do you think that people should go into any relationship with any expectations? Do you think what is more harmful is having the expectations, having the is it possible to go in without any expectations, do you guys think?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I feel it's just that we have that view of how marriage should look like, and so we base ourselves this is what I'm setting for myself for, this is what I'm looking for, and so we always have these images, and so it's hard to just go into something with having not expecting anything. I mean, from my end, I know it's clearly impossible.
No, yeah, because you hear a lot about how expectations are harmful. You're just letting yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. But I'm just wondering, if you guys, okay, maybe let me ask this question: what expectations about men should women not go into any relationship with? If you're going into a long-term relationship, I'm sure growing up, however, whatever male representative you had in your life, whatever the depiction in your life was of what the role of the man was in a relationship, what would you advise ladies? Just this thing, let it go, let it go.
I am for the answers. Sitting back and I'm
just
love it.
Setting yourself up.
Love it.
Who wants to go?
Can I answer?
Yes,
I can answer that one. I think growing up, or I guess the culture, society in which I grew up, I was given an image that a man is strong and they don't have feelings. Mm-hmm. But boy, guys, this thing, we must scratch it up. Whoever came up with that image of what masculinity is about, we must cancel it out and start all over again and redefine it, because they are emotional beings. They're all emotional
Very
beings.
So.
They just have different ways of expressing it, But I just want to cancel that whole, image of what we believe the man is supposed to be. Yeah, a non-emotional being. Yeah.
That's a big one, Steffi. I think that's really a big one. And even as a sister of brothers, I'm always I feel like the least emotional out of all of us, when we talk about big emotional moments, when I think about us growing up, it was definitely one of my brothers. It wasn't me. So I think that's definitely a good one. Gina?
And forget about that he can read your body language. People think if communicate, talk. Like the whole, I don't know who told us women that closing our mouth and acting like we're big mad and it's gonna mean anything or it's gonna transfer any message. I feel like it's if you don't say it, it doesn't exist. If you don't your body language cannot talk on your behalf.
I love it, G. I love it. I love it.
It's so
Use
true.
your words. That's a good one. Anything you want to share?
Oh, I mean, 100% agree with what Gina and Steph are saying. It's 100% true.
For
It
sure.
works for our parents. Our parents always can read when you're mad, and they will figure out because you're their child. They know how to handle you. Your husband has no clue what this body language is.
Yeah.
Don't add culture to it, because Burundians, we have certain things that we do that nobody else understands. So he's like, what's going on with this girl? Anyway.
What does that mean? That's so true. I'm sure in a context when you're from two different cultures and you're trying to create this home and this new traditions with each other, it must be such a trip. Ladies, it's been so good. I mean, we could go on and on. I'm just so grateful that you agreed to come on. I think just to close it up, I guess, I mean, I've asked all the questions. Kanye, I don't know if there's any big burning question you have for these married ladies, because as you said, you're considering getting into marriage. And then for the rest of you ladies, like, what is the one thing you want all women to know out there just about relationships and marriage? Kanye, I'll start with you. Is there any like major question or comment, parting shots you want to make before we shut down?
I think we've covered most of them, and I think the one that you've said now maybe is it or not. Mm-hmm. I think the whole thing of what you wish you knew before you got married. I know we've spoke about myths, we've spoken about. Yeah. I think in a way we've touched on it, but I think if maybe I can ask them individually to highlight, the one thing that they wish they knew, and one they wish they knew before getting married. That would be it for me.
Yeah. So I think I'll go to Gina, Arame, and then we'll close off with you, Steffi. What is one thing you wish you knew before?
Not all the men are the same. So what I mean by that is knowing your brother, knowing your friend, knowing cannot apply to your man. Like each man is unique on their own. So that was the key, I guess, to understanding more of the issues.
Yeah, Arame?
Maybe one thing I wish I knew was how to effectively communicate my feelings, and I ended up learning it along the time with being married and stuff. But one thing that I think is very important is to know how to communicate with your partner. And I think it's the most important. Sometimes I feel just that communication is the root of most of the problems. Just because you don't say what you really have, how you're really feeling, you don't say it, so he can't know that for sure, because you're just poker facing it and keeping on with your life. And I wish I knew how to open up better and communicate effectively.
And then Steffi with the final word.
I think that any advice that I would give anyone looking to get married, or not that I've been married for too long, but I think for the few years I've been married, and it's still a question that I'm still also trying to define. We used to hear that for men, the whole concept of respect is very important. So try and understand what respect means to him, your person, because respect means many things to many people. So have that conversation. So I think it builds on what Gina said, but also the communication part that Arame just spoke about, learning how to communicate better. So don't be afraid to ask those questions and understand what does respect look like for you, yeah.
Definitely. Ladies, thank you so much. To those of you who've been watching this conversation, I hope you've at least felt like you related to some of the ladies and what they've said. I hope you felt affirmed. I hope you know that you're not alone in all these journeys. There's a lot of women like you out there. As I've said, this is a very special edition of After I Do, the story of Steffi and Jessy. You can catch us on YouTube. Please follow Steffi and Jessy on Instagram. You can follow the Black African Woman on Facebook and Instagram. And we have a website called blackafricanwoman.org. But ladies, thank you, Khany, Steffi, Arame, and Gina. Thank you so much, ladies. I've really, really enjoyed this. We could go on and on and on and on. We might have to, make this a habit. We'll see. But God bless and take care to all of you. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye.